So this is the final example program, and it is writing to files. Now, writing to files is the additional bit that you kind of see at the end of the specification, but it's something that we need to be aware of, and we need to know. There we go, the 3 methods of accessing files in Python. And there are 3 specific ways to access your data using a Python program. Those 3 are to open in read mode, to open in write mode, and very much like our arrays, to open in append. So you can read your data, so you can just access your data. You can write it. Now, writing will overwrite. It will take the whole file and it will write it right from the beginning. It gets rid of everything and starts again. Appending will then add to the end of the file and won't then change any of the original data. Appending can be really, really helpful. Sometimes we use the write because we've read all of the data into an array and then we've added to it or we've changed the array, and so therefore we write to the whole file and we start again. So in here, I've got a couple of things that it's worth just being aware of, particularly if you're writing in Python. One of the other things that you're able to use is the dot strip. Now, a line dot strip, what that will do is to remove any of the like new line characters or tab characters, anything you can't see, but will make your screen look a little bit strange. So as you read in each line of your file, you strip the data. So a dot strip will take away the \ends, everything like that. And then you do need to close it. So here I have opened names.txt in read mode. I am then using a for loop. Now, the reason I can use a for loop for a file is because I can count, or the computer can count, how many lines there are in the file. This looks very, very different in pseudocode. So I would really, really recommend that you create flashcards where you have, this is what it looks like in Python, this is what it looks like in pseudocode, particularly for Cambridge iGCSE, because the file reading, writing and appending uses a slightly unusual way of accessing each one. So Python uses a for loop, pseudocode often uses a while loop. And for this one, we use files, particularly to store data permanently. They will expect you to use the word permanently. Think about a file almost like a little tiny database. It is a permanent, organized store of data, which is exactly what a database is. Not all programs need an amazing database with lots and lots of tables. Sometimes you just want to store your high scores or a list of data, and that's perfect with a text file. You'll see at the end of each of the file use in this particular example that we have file.close. Now, file.close is used for 2 different things. When you have a file open, it is essentially locked out to all other users, but also locked out to all other programs. So if we want to open it in a different mode, so say I've got it in read mode, but I actually want to write to it, I have to close it first and then open it in that new mode. If I also don't close it, it also gets locked out. So it's really important that you do close your files. Think about them a little bit like cupboards. If you open a cupboard door, you can't open that cupboard door again until you've closed it. The other really important thing, brilliant. The other really important thing is that it saves the file. There's no direct save function for files when we're writing to them. So by doing file.close, you are closing the file, but you're also saving that data. So the save operation is actually performed at that point. Oof. And we're on to the last bit. If you are going to store your data, and we talked about this being a permanent, organized store of data, organizing your data is going to allow you to then pull it back into an array. Now, in this case, I've used a nice simple one name on each line of the file. That means that I can use a new line character. So something like file.write name plus and a \n in Python will add a new line. So you do actually have to put that in there. So in this case, where I have file.write name plus get greeting, this is actually going to write everything all on one really, really big line, which is not particularly helpful. If I add a \n to the end of that line, every name with its greeting will be stored separately. And then I can use this for line in file, because the for loop will detect the \n as a new line character. The other thing you can then do is within the same line is to use a thing called a delimiter. A delimiter is a particular character that you have identified, which is going to separate your data. Now, quite often we use a comma to separate data. And if you've ever used a CSV file, a comma separated value list, and you've probably opened those in a spreadsheet, what they do is every new row is separated by a \n, and each new cell in the spreadsheet is separated by a comma. If you were to create something like I've got here, which is the file.write, then name, plus a comma, plus maybe an age, and then a \n, you could then take that text file and you could open that in a spreadsheet and it would automatically lay that out in columns and rows. So you can actually create almost like a two-dimensional array using your file. It's definitely worth being aware that you don't just have to use new lines for each thing. You can also add extra characters, and those characters are called delimiters.